surprised by how well I still look for how late it is in the day, and also, uh, sorry, I don't have my glasses. It helps me with the blue light of camera, of phones, and electronics in general. Um, so I had lists and lists of just stuff I wanted to talk about because I had my little mini series of talking about fandoms I've been a part of and still kind of hold near and dear. I wasn't planning on going into every single fandom that I'm a part of ever. I just wanted to mostly talk about all of the big hitters, like the stuff that has stuck with me. I think that's why I had so many kid ones, because those it was less about the show itself, I was hoping, and more so talking about my experience because I've had that series. But and I had I've written down multiple lists, and I was planning on going through multiple different stuff. Um sorry, I'm happy to be back, but it was tough getting back onto the camera. Um so I wanted to talk about books in particular. Um, I'm not. When I was younger, I was a little bit of a reader, but I wrote more than I read stories, and I um kind of like my how I was so big on action in my childhood. Still am. It's not That's not new per se, but I um that's where I went to my books for reading, and I'm also hoping to get back into reading. So, uh, but cause I see, I wrote down Steel Heart series, but I feel like with this, I should talk about reading altogether, because that was a big chunk, and this has helped affect me a lot, but also affected me in another way afterwards that I feel like it'd be fun to share with you guys. Um, I My parents are big on Brandon Sanderson, and um they kept trying to get me into reading books constantly, and I'd always be able to pick up a book. Sometimes I was able to go through it and I was able to finish one book, but most books I cannot actually pick up and read it through. Or if there's a series like the Harry Potter series, I was able to read one book all the way through and was excited. Was able Picked up the second book, didn't even get past into the tens. I think it was the third chapter and I just dropped it, and I I kept going through a cycle of just repeating the first book, and eventually I just got tired of trying. So um I'm kind of in this phase as my parents are trying to still get me to read books. And they introduced me to Brandon Sanderson and how he has a ton of books and how they are basically huge fans. They kind of treat him like a bit of a mini celebrity in a similar way that you would admire a director. And I found that very interesting and fascinating, because I didn't understand, other than J.K. Rowling, but that's because it got turned into movies of the special interest in authors. Because, again, I love myself a good story, but I was used to the medium of movies. So, um, high school time, I finally tried dipping my toes, and particularly into Steelheart. And I loved that series so much that I like put off my writing, which was huge. Like I normally like every chance I get would write, but I put off my writing to just read this book. And I remember I like had friends I would talk to in between classes, and even gave me like chocolates, which I greatly appreciate, and it's still stuck with me, even though I seem to forget a lot of. Well, I don't think I forget a lot of things, but like a lot of things in school doesn't stand out because school it's boring, but uh, her doing that did stick out for me to me, and then but there was a case of like I kept trying to be like I want to read this book, I want to read this book. She's like, oh okay, go ahead and read the book, and I as I wrote down here, I quote, first book series I fully finished. I enjoyed the world building. I thought basically is because it's so similar to a movie that to like a show or a movie that I loved it so much because it felt like I was creating a movie. I'm able to hear the words as I read them as well as make a scene in my head. So it felt like I had an actual show going on in my brain, and I thought that was fantastic, and I couldn't get enough of it. And then, basically because of Steel Heart series, I picked up more of his books. I enjoyed a lot of them, and then after a couple of books I read, I could not really pick up books. I had The Maze Runner a while back. I read the first book, couldn't find the second book, dropped the whole series altogether. That's like my most common pattern I've had is just not being able to find the next book, and so I don't read it, or I'm not able to keep it. So then I like I give it back because I try my best not to steal, and then I lose interest because I don't have any more and it's not on my mind. And books, like something visual sticks better to me than in a book, which is very sad. But after I got out of school, I got more interested in autobiographies, and there's this one book that I got into, and I was excited. It got me back to like that movie mindset of being able to imagine the actual events happening in my brain, and I got excited. And then I had a friend that wanted to read the book, and I was still in the middle of reading it, and I told this friend, "Hey, I actually really do care about this book, so I need you to give this back to me." And she was like, "Oh, I promise, I will." And it took me nagging her for months, and I mean months. And like I was like, "Oh, how far are you in the book?" And then we talk about it, and then she finished the book, and then I kept nagging her for months of like, "Hey, I need my book back," because I let her borrow it. She wasn't keeping it, and it took. I think she was just annoyed, and she was hoping that I'd forget about it. But I actually was genuinely just so interested in this book because it felt because it was a true story, it felt like I needed to complete it to understand this person better and honor honor the person that made it. So I got in basically unintentionally got in her face here and there because I'm very quiet. I've always been quiet, and like reserved and let things go. But when I didn't let this one go, she's like, "Okay, fine, I'll give it back to you." I'm realizing another thing. That wasn't the first time. Like there's another book I gave her that wasn't even mine to give. I was like, "Hey, you need to ask my parents if you to borrow that book," and they gave her permission. And they're like, "But you will need to bring it back." She hasn't brought it. She hasn't given it back, nor I think she ever will, because I cut ties with her. But planning on this series, talking solely about fandoms, but I feel like that's the cups of my reading experience. Now I plan on getting back into reading books, and mostly because I'm on TikTok and I keep seeing ads about books and they seem very intriguing to me. Like I could picture like a mini story going on as I get like this little clip snippets. So I think I might, maybe it's because I'm older. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case, or if it's because I'm trying to get more into not diversifying my ideas, but figuring out how to write a book. So my big goal is making a comic, but you kind of need to be able to write a book first in order to make a comic. Not perfectly, but something along those lines. So I'm hoping to get back into reading books, seeing how it works, and then just to help me be able to work on my stories in the future. Yeah. I was hoping that I filmed this earlier and I was gonna make way more videos today and just drop them daily, because that was my big goal. Another video another day. But yeah. Uh I thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to me, and if you like it, like the video. If you're interested in me, uh please subscribe. I would appreciate that, and I will let you go. Bye.